So, who works in-house here? Show of hands. In-house. Couple of in-house people. Awesome. And do we have a variety of people who are working as in agencies as well? Okay. Smattering. Some people are opting not to vote at all. I respect that. That's fair. Am I supposed to advance it? Oh, there we go. That's smart. Look at that. I had a tough parenting morning, and I think it just makes you dumb for the rest of the day. So you're just going to have to work with me on this. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about leveraging your content to build connections. And I did this in a really unique way. So I'm really excited to share this with you. So once upon a time, I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a marketer who found herself staring down the barrel of an empty Google Calendar. Spoiler alert, it was me. I'm the marketer. But before I dive into all of that, I just want to talk a little bit about who I am. I am the CEO and chief strategist at NeoLuxe Marketing. We do content, we do strategy, and we do branding and events. I run a teeny little agency with a small core, amazing, kick-ass team of 4 other people. And I do it out of a co-working space I actually own in Kitsap County, which is really fun. So it's all very mixed together. Prior to that, I've spent the last 20 years of my career building marketing departments from the ground up. This means that I have done everything. I have hand coded, I have done graphic design, I have written, I have edited, I have, just the works, messed around with Marketo, Pardot, whatever. So when you're building marketing departments from the ground up, you get real scrappy, and it's forced me to just do pretty much everything. I have been leading a fairly successful agency for the past 4.5 years. And I've really enjoyed working with a variety of different clients, which has been really fun. I am currently learning Spanish, and originally I thought it was so I could eloquently order tequila, but it turns out it was just so I could awkwardly tell people I was learning Spanish when I visited Spanish-speaking countries. I'm also learning how to roller skate, and I'm very proud of my backwards skating. I feel like I'm making mad progress. I'm pretty jazzed about that. I love fun shoes, and I consider myself a professional dog snuggler. I feel like this is all context you need to know about me as we go into the rest of this conversation. So, some smuggler? I'm going to be like, pugs for everybody. That's exactly right. Yeah, more heckling, please. Okay, so it is March 2020, and I have lost every single client. Every single client I have. I'm the breadwinner of my family, so this was like a big deal. I was like, oh crap, am I going to pay my mortgage this month? I didn't know. I wasn't sure. And I'm sure that as marketers, you probably experienced something similar where you were looking at your job, looking at your customers and saying, oh my God, how do we pivot? How do we make this work while things were falling apart? But what I did find out was that the good news is that I had been spending 3 years building my content marketing library. I've been building my thought leadership library. I've been building my personal brand. I've really been focused on that. And so I was prepared to go into a hard time because I had done a ton of work. The bad news is no one wanted to talk to me. There was a pandemic. They were busy. They were like freaking out about whether or not they were going to have jobs. Understandable. But I think, and so ultimately, like in the best of times, marketing agencies, nobody wants to talk to a marketing agency unless they have like a dire need. And I promise you, this was not the best of times. It was not. It was bad. People were stressed. People were freaked out. They didn't want to be sold to. It was really stressful for both me and them. And so what I found was my antidote, and I'm not sure what I was thinking when I decided this, but I was going to do 500 meetings in 150 days. I did not set out to do this, just for the record. I did not set out to do 150 meetings in 500 days, or 500 meetings in 150 days. I didn't set out to do that. It just happened to be like, I knew that I was staring down the barrel of watching people around me lose their homes, and I didn't want to be one of those people. So the best thing I could do was not sit still, because then I had to face all these emotions. That was terrible. So I decided instead to just go talk to people. And that was the best action I could do. And I needed to figure out how to do that considering we were in the middle of something really scary for everybody. And so being a weird, genuine, authentic person, no matter what, like you literally are, what you see is what you get in every instance, whether or not we're having coffee, except for in the morning when my kid is driving me crazy. And then that's a different Maureen. But most of the time, this is it. This is how I'll talk to you one-to-one. This is how I'll talk to you in a group. But, and so this served me very well when it came to trying to connect with people during really, really difficult times. So what did I learn about 500 meetings in 150 days? I learned how to obscure my background for Zoom meetings before it was cool. I did that. I think I was the pioneer. I learned that people don't trust marketing agencies, but they absolutely do trust people. I learned that there are ways for me to share the things I was proud of in conversations as a way to build trust rather than to seem salesy. And ultimately, I learned that I really like people and I'm curious about them. So when I think about how I was marrying this content and networking together, it was really about leveraging the things I had been working on, the thought leadership and the content marketing that I had gone about. I'd really passionately put my heart into for the last 3 years. Now it was time to take that stuff and put it into the conversations. And if I was doing it well and having valuable conversations with relevant people, then it wasn't going to be hard for me to slip these this sort of thing into the conversation. So I just took off. It was time. So there were 3 things I did to survive during this time when I was trying to make these meetings happen. I nurtured my network, right? I had been nurturing my network, but then I put that in high gear when I was going through the process of actually reaching out to people. So that means I asked them about their children. I checked in with them as humans. I think every conversation I started with was we asked each other, how you doing? And we were like, not great. So we spent a lot of time being very genuine and very honest. And I feel like honestly, out of that pandemic moment, like we have opened up as professionals to professionals, like that world has gotten a lot blurrier. So now more of my conversations in this post-pandemic world have really come about as part of the conversation of like, how are you doing? And somebody will actually tell me how they're doing. And that is cool. That is a great way for you to build trust and connection. And I feel safe doing the same thing. So now we have a trusted moment, right? I also made it easy to find me, right? Like, so when we're going through this process and I've asked somebody if they want to have coffee with me, like the first thing I want them to do is search for me, because if they can find me and they can validate I'm a real human being who's not just out there trying to sell to people, then you're building a moment of trust in that place as well. So connecting with people, making sure that they understand what my priorities are, what I'm trying to accomplish, what other people are saying about me very, very easily are critical pieces of how I made it easy to find me and how to build trust with my market. And then I spent a lot of time on social validation. So when people were out there in the world searching for me, they were finding me on Marketing Profs. They were finding me on Content Marketing Institute's blog. They were finding me on Spin Sucks. They were finding me in the market. Therefore, that last barrier of trust, where is she legit? Is she full of crap? That started to fold away because they could find me, and I had third-party validation and social proof that told them I wasn't just a salesperson. So I published, so the key is consistency, right? So every month I would post brand building blogs post to my blog. Every week I would look for opportunities on LinkedIn and on Twitter and in those sort of virtual environments, virtual communities to help continue to create moments of trust with people and share my expertise. And finally, every day I did my best to show up. And I can tell you at around meeting 50, I kind of wanted to stop. I wasn't really interested anymore because I was really tired. And but the reality is I needed to remember for me that I hadn't achieved my goal. I hadn't built my business back up. It wasn't time to stop yet. So what I had to remind myself every day is this was going to be a long game, right? And then the next step was like, okay, now let's get more networking. How do we get going? And as we know, networking isn't easy. It's awkward. It's confusing. You have to ask people you don't know questions. You have to talk to them and look at them in the eyeballs. It is really uncomfortable. And how do you get them to say yes to you as a stranger, right? Like you're a stranger. How do you do that? So a couple of things that I did to help sort of continue to like fuel or stoke the fire of my networking process was to, um, I I would go to a lot of virtual events. I would go to a lot of virtual events and I would find people who are making insightful comments and I would look them up on LinkedIn. And when I looked them up on LinkedIn, I'd be like, ooh, they're interesting. They might be a good connection for me. So I would send a LinkedIn invitation. And how many people have gotten terrible LinkedIn invitations that make you want to cry? Are you bored? Do you want to throw them in the garbage can? Me too. They're terrible. If I get one more, I would like to expand my network. Would you be my connection? Like I would never be sad if I never got another one of those again. So what I did was strive to do something different. I wanted to get a yes. I wanted to get a yes. And the best way I could do that is say, okay, I saw you on this event we mutually went to. My goal is to connect with other marketers so I can stay connected through this pandemic to my network because I'm not going to see anybody. I was wondering if you'd like a non-salesy virtual coffee with me. I'm just trying to stay connected with my people. I got a 90% yes rate. Crazy town, right? So that kind of infrastructure and creating a mutual connection also builds trust. You had a shared experience. That's a trust moment, right? So ultimately, the end result ended up that this felt very transactional, but the reality is I really cared about these people. Like I wanted to know what was going on with them. It was probably a diversion tactic from dealing with my own feelings, but whatever. C'est la vie. But if I spent more time caring about what was happening with them, then it didn't matter that ultimately this might lead in a sale because I had started off as human to human, right? We had real genuine conversations about their lives and what they do for a living and how passionate they are about what they do. And then if they asked me about sales, I would say, ooh, I don't really want to talk about that this call. I'd really like to push that to another call. Let's book another one, right? So it was really just making sure that there was some clarity around the point of the event itself. And once I got the meeting, I spent a lot of time trying to ensure that it didn't get that awkward silence where you get together and you're like, hey, how's it going? It was bad. I knew that. So I didn't need to ask that question. But what I did want to do is make this a productive meeting. And the big piece here is like I had opportunities throughout this framework called the GAINS method to incorporate content at every step of the way. So GAINS was made popular by an organization called BNI. You can love them, you can hate them. It's not for everybody. But it was one of the ways that I made sure that every conversation I had with a stranger professionally was productive. So the first thing I would ask is about goals, right? I would say, okay, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish with your career? How's it going? And if you think about whether or not content, like the goal would be that you would incorporate content throughout these conversations or your expertise or whatever to ensure that you're continuing to move through the trust part of this, of your relationships, of your connections, of your conversations. Understanding the goals is probably not the best place to start pimping your content. So I would say don't really focus on the content, but do understand what that person is trying to achieve with their career, with their life, with with the things that they love to do. It'll really give you a sense for what direction they want to head in and maybe how you can help them. The next thing I asked them about is accomplishments. I love this question. It's my absolute favorite. It's fun to learn what people are really proud of, what they value, what they're excited about, what they're looking to really achieve. And just as much as you're asking them about their accomplishments, you can share your accomplishments. And oftentimes that can be content, right? That can be something that you've written that you're really proud of that you can share in these moments. So a great way to sort of highlight your thought leadership in that opportunity. The next one is their interests. This is a great time to learn about their favorite Marvel character, right? And I love telling people about my Spanish adventure or my adventure for learning Spanish and learning how to roller skate. And I love learning what other people love to do. That's a really exciting moment as well, because then you can have this personal connection on top of these professional trust moments. Content-wise, if you wanted to loop some content into here, I have a friend who likes to use her passion for baking as like a way to simply explain complex marketing topics. If you have something like that, this is a great time to talk about it. In fact, I'm so passionate about baking that I incorporate it in all of my marketing content. Let me send you a link, right? But also, if you haven't done that, this might be a great way for you to make some more content ideas. That's me. Next up is the networks, right? So when you're having these conversations and you want to find more ways to connect with people, and this person is great, like a good fit for you, from a networking standpoint, from an opportunity standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, it would be a good time to ask them where else they go so that you can find more people like them, right? And from a content perspective, I'm not sure it makes sense unless you're a networking expert to incorporate content at this point in the conversation. But if you are, this is a great way to show off that skill. Finally, your skills. Skills is an easy one. We're all hopefully writing or doing videos or creating content about our skills. So once, hopefully they're sharing their skills with you and you can learn about what they do and how they do it using their content, their skills, and the conversation you're having. But it's also the perfect opportunity for you to highlight the skills that you have in your pocket, right? This is share links, share videos, talk about it. I recommend following up with an email with anything you want to share because that way there's some sort of record. Most chat programs, everything's ephemeral, so it disappears afterwards. So the Gaines profile has literally never left me at a loss for words. It has served me faithfully. And it might seem that I wouldn't be at a loss for words because I like to talk, but the reality is I'm super socially awkward and and it gets real quiet and weird. So I prefer to use this sort of framework to make sure that the conversation moves along and we're actually sharing information that will be useful to each other. Does anybody else want another second with this slide? You look like you're ready. Okay. All right, cool. Yep. All right, so you're thinking to yourself, okay, you're just one person. You're the head of the sales department. Of course you're going to be able to do this. But the reality is there's an opportunity to scale. If you as marketers, want to help your marketing or your sales departments have this type of power when they're out in the market, there are ways to do that. So you can try sharing this information in the form of interpretive dance. I don't recommend it. It doesn't work very well. I've tried. So when you release a new piece of content or a new campaign, and you have a sales team that's sitting there going, we never get anything we need from sales or from marketing. We never know what's going on, right? And then you're like, but there's folders upon folders of content. How is it possible that you don't have what you need here? Well, it turns out that marketing internally is just as important as marketing externally when it comes to marketing content. I'm sure you all know this. But what I found is I actually had to release my content 3 different times in the organizations that I worked in. So my last full-time in-house gig, I was the marketing director for a local learning agency. And they had never had a marketing department before. So I was like, it's like training people from the ground up. You're like, I have stuff for you. And they're like, stuff? You're like, yes, stuff. And so we had to train and teach and help them understand how to use what we were working on, because most of these people had been at this company for a decade and never had a marketing department and had been making their own sales materials. I don't know about you, but that never works out. It never works out. So I was really excited to be able to release these, but it was like a baby with a computer. They were like, oh. So I found that what I would have to do is I would first release this campaign and this content in the larger all staff meeting. I had a very skeptical CFO at the time, and I don't know if you know what that's like, but I'm sure you do, where the CFO stares at you and goes, why are we investing in marketing? So what I found explaining and launching content in the all staff meeting did for me was give clarity around how they serve the larger goals of the organization. And I also found that it offered people the opportunity to ask questions and to show the kind of value we were bringing to the organization. So it was, but it also gave there was a hum, right? After every time we would do something, if we were doing cool stuff, which, we're doing cool stuff because it's me, but no, But I'm sitting here making myself laugh. Anyway, so we were doing cool stuff and we wanted the company to know. And so it started to create a buzz in the organization. So that way, the next time we went to the sales meeting, we would do a second launch and we'd really talk about the content that we were creating, how they could use it in the market, what are things they should listen for in their networking conversations that will allow them to drop these pieces of content or these pieces of expertise into their conversations in a way that's meaningful. And so when we got to that point, it became easier and easier to have people, to have our sales team be able to utilize content in a networking format, right? So they're out there having conversations, shaking hands, kissing babies, but they're also able to listen for key terms that will allow them to integrate the content and the expertise that we have had the pleasure of making into their conversations at scale. So that's pretty fun. Finally, we would also do a content release to the customers themselves. The customers via social, we would be out in the world doing our own networking as a marketing group. We would be out there creating email campaigns, really everything you would normally do to just release something that was important to you. So we would actually have 3 separate launches. Does this sound like a lot of work? Yes. Was it a lot of work? Yes. Because good marketing is hard. I mean, you know that, I know that. This is hard work to do this right. And the important thing is that when you are considering all of the work that you're doing now, it will bear fruit for you when things are getting hard, right? So what I learned ultimately is that beyond a pandemic strategy of connecting content and networking and losing customers and having 500 meetings, is that it's really critical for us to be building these libraries for us personally as marketers in our thought leadership space and making sure that we're able to point back to libraries of content that highlight our expertise, but also to empower our sales teams to be able to integrate content in a way that's strategic and exciting and natural for them. And all in all, if we do this work early on, then when the times get tough, it's much easier for us to transition and become resilient as marketers and the people who serve and marketers who serve sales, right? We're creating resilience for the sales team, or creating resilience for our own careers, and we're creating resilience for the organizations we work for. So when it's all done right, you are rainbow bright, riding off into the sunset on a rainbow, right? That's my hope for everybody. Okay, well, that's the long and the short of my talk. Feel free to ask questions. I know there's a box with a microphone floating around right back there. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right. Oh, it's running and tossing.
They go all the way around.
Thank you.
Yes. Was it hard? Can you guys hear me? Is it working?
Not really.
Is this thing on? Does it say?
You have to drink it?
Is it working?
Yeah, now it's working. You just got to put it close to your face.
So was it hard to get sales on board with the different content launches? Because the issue that we have at my company is that they'll ask for specific pieces at a specific time. And then if they need it 3 months down the line, they forget that we have it. And so it ends up being like almost a quarterly release of this is what we have for content. This is what's on our pipeline and so on and so forth. So is there a way to help them remember or to encourage them to use the pieces that you've already presented?
Yes, absolutely. So my sales team in this particular instance was so thirsty for help. Mm-hmm. They were like delighted, but they did also have the shortest memories in the land. So what we would do is release digests and create landing pages on the intranet to help them navigate it by topic versus by versus like just keywords and things like that. Because once again, if it's not right in front of them, it gets lost. So we actually built from the ground up a wiki specifically for sales, just so they could see like, here was the topic was onboarding new employees, and we had a product for that. So everything we had about onboarding was there, and it was organized by level of the funnel.
Okay. Yeah. So do you recommend producing content by, or I guess releasing content to them by each step in the sales cycle. So for us, I work in insurance, so the sales cycle can be anywhere from 18 months to 3 years.
Yeah.
So if we organize it by steps in the sales cycle, is that as productive as maybe organizing by like, oh, this topic is about technology, this topic is about claims in insurance, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably do both. I would say if claims is your intranet, then I would organize it by top of funnel to bottom of funnel.
Okay.
So that way they knew where they needed to be.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So similar train of thought on my question, but more on the opposite side of a sales team who's used to getting stuff, I guess.
Okay.
Did you ever find that they were exhausted with the 2-stage release where you did the company-wide and then later you kind of did the department one and they're like, we already heard about this, why are you talking to us again?
No, they don't listen in all steps.
That's,
I know that's not probably the nicest thing to say, but it's totally true. They were like, what? Oh, this is the sales section. So for me, that wasn't a big issue. And they really wanted the opportunity to dive deeply and ask questions. And so I found that second stage was really, really critical. So that way we could be a little more connected and they understood the value we were bringing in a more intimate way.
Yeah, same experience for me. I'm just hoping someone somewhere out there is actually getting that experience where someone's tired of hearing from them. But
sorry,
nope.
not it. Any other questions? Oh, okay.
So just with your experience of, like you said, building marketing departments from the ground up, do you think it is reasonable or feasible to have a one-person marketing department for your organization?
This is such a painful question. I have been in one-person marketing department so many times. It is literally my least favorite job ever. So my team is actually building something called How Many Jobs Are You Doing? It's a quiz.
Yeah.
So every time I say this in a room full of marketers, they laugh and they scoff and they cry a little. So the reason, I think it depends on how big the company is. So in your case, how big is your organization?
Well, so I work for a resort, so it's running for each department. So it's rooms, spa, restaurant, both restaurants.
Okay.
And then like reservations, lodging, things like that. So it's a huge thing, and we've always only ever had one person, and so I'm now getting a peek into it. I was like, "You're doing what? And what?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just like really busy." And I'm like, "Holy cow." And so we're wondering, why the social posts are 3 months late of the restaurant food that we don't even have anymore. And it's like, we're but she does like all like leadership meetings.
Yeah.
But like you said, like no one cares or they don't show up. And so I'm trying to like go to my boss and say, "Hey, listen, I think maybe we should get another person in here." So I'm just trying to get, a little backing on that.
Well, from what it sounds like to me, it sounds like both your leadership need to be more visible about their supportive marketing, first of all. And I think your marketer, if you're helping them, the best thing you can do is help them create some sort of metrics that show the impact that marketing has on the organization as a whole, and what it might mean if you added another person. And real talk, like, the Great Resignation is real. That person is not going to last.
No, she recently quit.
Ooh, crystal ball.
Still only hired one person.
Yeah, I mean, the marketing burnout is real because people have unrealistic expectations about what we're able to accomplish and how many jobs we're able to do without dying.
Exactly.
Literally dying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for real. So, no, it's not reasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's what I thought. But
that sounds terrible.
Sure.
No, that sounds terrible. So, any other questions? Excellent. Well, thank you guys for having me.